Hello boys and girls, welcome to lesson 2-6, sales tax, tips, and markup. Typically, a sales tax is in Ontario is 13%, so it means we have to add a 13% to the price tag. Tips, we typically have a tip ratio of about 15%, so we would have to add 15% to the price of a meal or so. And a markup is when a price has increased by a certain percentage. For this lesson, we will continue to address the question, how can percent help you understand situations involving money? And the vocabulary we will use will be sales tax, tip, gratuity, markup, and selling price. Let's look at our real-world example. Kayaks. Alonso plans to buy a new kayak that costs $2,100. But when he buys the kayak, it actually costs more because he lives in a country where there is a 7% sales tax, which means we have to add 7% of the cost. So we have to find what 7% of this is and add it to it. You can find the amount of tax on an item by multiplying the price by the tax percentage. Circle the amount below that shows the amount of tax Alonso will pay for the kayak. So, for example, we're going to take our value of 2,100, the price of it, of 2,100, right? And we're going to multiply that by 7% or 700. 700. When you multiply those two numbers, you will get 147. That means that 7% of 2,100 is 147. So $147 will be paid simply on taxes. Question 2. Use the amount of tax from exercise 1 to fill in the receipt at the right. Then find the total cost Alonso will pay for the kayak. Okay, so the kayak costs $2,100, right? 2,100. The sales tax is 147. So our total will be 2,247. Multiply 1.07 and 2,100. How does the result compare to your answer in exercise 2? Now, here's what they're trying to get us to do. In this equation, we're still going to get 2,247. Same that we have right here, the same thing that we have. The reason I put a 1 in front of it is because we have to include, let's just take a look over here. If I multiply 2,100 times 1, I'm going to get 2,100. It's going to include this amount already. So I know that my price includes this. This is without taxes, so I have to include it, so I'm going to multiply it times 1. So that'll be included in my answer. And then if I tack on the 7%, so the 0.7, it's going to include the 2,100 by the 1 times 2,100, 2,100, and an additional 7%, or 700th of 2,100. So when you multiply 2,100 times 1.07, it will give you the total cost inclusive of the price before taxes. Go ahead and try this. Try it on your calculator, and you'll see that when you add the 1, it includes the price. If you do not include the 1 and you only do 0.07, you will get the 147. It's only going to give you the 7%, the tax. But if you include the 1 before it in the ones place, it will include the price before taxes. So, let's look at number 4. On Alonso's kayaking trip, hiring a guide cost $50. Alonso wants to give the guide a 10% tip. Explain how to find the amount of the tip. So we have $50, right? And we want to find out what it is, what 10% is. 10%, we have to write it as 0.1, right? 1/10. 10% is 1/10 of 100. So there it is. This is 10% written as a decimal. So that'll give us what 10% is, which is 5, right? It's $5. But if we wanted to include the 50 and have the total price, which includes the 50 plus the 10%, we will multiply 50 times 1.1. So we're including the 50 by multiplying it by 1, and we're including the 10% by writing the 10% in the 10th place. And as a decimal. And that'll give us 55. So it includes the base price plus the tip right there. Okay, one of our main points is highlighted here in the red or the pink, sales tax and total cost. Sales tax is an additional amount of money charged on items that people buy. The total cost of an item is the regular price plus the sales tax. Okay, like I mentioned, in Ontario we have a sales tax of 7%. I know that in Michigan is 4.5, I believe. Every state or country has a different sales tax, and that's just the added percentage to the price that you have to pay on the items that you buy. Let's look at example 1 here. Drew wants to buy exercise equipment that costs $140 and the sales tax is 5.75%. What is the total cost of the equipment? Now, the way I would do this, because they're looking for total cost, they want me to include the 140. I would take my 140 and I would multiply it by the percentage. Now remember, we cannot multiply percents because percent is an expression of a whole. We have to change that to a number. So we take away the percentage by dividing the percentage, this number right here, by 100. We would divide that by 100 so the decimal moves 2 places to the right. So it will become 0.05% by 75. Okay, so now that we multiply it by that number, we're going to get $8.05. That is what 5.75% of 140 is. But I want to include this into my price. So instead of multiplying it by 0 decimal, I should replace that 0 here, this 0 here, I will replace it with 1. So I will go ahead, take my eraser and erase it. I will replace it with 1. And now, because I'm multiplying 140 times 1, it's going to include 140. 140 times 1 is 140. And 140 times 1 decimal 0.575, it will include this. So the decimal 0.575 is this number. And I want to add 140 to it, so I'm multiplying it by 1 in front. So I will get now my new answer. Let me erase that answer. Will be the 148 with 5 cents, 0.5. Okay, and you can see that right down here. But what they did is they just added it. But it's better to multiply it times 1. So you would replace this number here with a 1, and that will include the 140 already in there in the total price. Okay, method number 2. Oh, you can see that that's what they're doing here. You see they included the 1 in front of it so that it goes right to the answer. That's what I was trying to get you to do. If you need to, pause the video and take a look at this equation, okay? All right, continuing on. Let's try it here. Make sure that you write this down. What is the total cost of a sweatshirt if the regular price is $40 and the sales tax is 5.5%? Okay, so we take $42 and we go to multiply it by 1 because I want to include my $42. I have to pay that. 0.055. If you're wondering where I got the 0.55 from, it's because I converted my 5.5% over here to a decimal, which is actually 0.05, right? That's the 5%. The 5 is this 5% here, and this is a half. So that half is actually the other 5. If I were to write it normally as a percentage, it would look like that, 5.5%, right? That's 5.5%. But as a decimal, the decimal has to move twice to the left to make it, to take it from a percent to a decimal, so it looks like this, 0.055. Okay, so these are both the same thing. Now that 0.055, I've included a 1 in front of it so that I can include my 42. 42 times 1 is 42, and 42 times decimal 0.55 is the 5.5%. Okay? When you multiply the two, you get the answer of, let me change the color here to red so that we can continue. 42 times 1.055, you will get 44.31. Now feel free to use a calculator when doing these multiplications, just to make it faster. Okay, so when we talk about tips and markups, what are we talking about? We are saying that a tip or gratuity is a small amount of money in return for a service. The total price is the regular price of the service plus the tip. A store sells items for more than it pays for those items. The amount of increase is called the markup. The selling price is the amount the customer pays for an item. So the markup. So let's just say you buy from the farm, from the apple orchard, you buy each apple at 50 cents, right? At 50 cents. We'll write it like that. 50 cents. And you sell them for $1.25. What's your markup? Well, your markup is 75 cents. So you're making 75 cents on each apple that you pay 50 cents for. You pay 50 cents for the apple, you sell for 125, you're making 75-cent profit. That is called your markup. Example number 2. A customer wants to tip 15% on a restaurant bill that is $35. What will the total be? So again, you take your $35 and you're going to multiply it by 1 to include the $35 in your total price times the 15%. Okay? And when you do that, you will get a total of $40.25. Okay? Now let's see how it's explained here. Method 1, add the tip to the regular price. Okay, so we have the part equals percent times the whole. Okay? So we need to find, the part is the part that we're looking for out of the 35. So we multiply 35 times the 15%, as I did over here. Except I included my price. I put a 1 in front of it. And that's going to give me the 525 that I need. So 15% of 35 is 525. Or you could just add this directly to the 35 and you'll get 4025. 35 plus 525 is 4025. Okay? Next, add the tip. So now they just want you to add it. But instead of doing that, why not just look down here, multiply it 1.15. So 35 times 1 is 35, and 35 times decimal 1.5 will be the 525. But this will give you the entire total simply by putting a 1 in front of it. And you see that? So it's a more efficient way to do it. Example 3. A haircut costs $20. Sales tax is 4.75%. Is $25 sufficient to cover the haircut with tax and a 15% tip? Okay, so that's the tax plus 15% tip. So first we have to solve the tax. Okay, so we're going to multiply the tax into it. Let's change this. Let me just zoom in here. Okay, let's change the percentage to a decimal. So that would be decimal 0.475. Now, okay. Now I'm going to include a 1 in front of it and multiply that by 20. The reason I include the 1 is because I want to include my 20 into my final cost. Instead of adding it later, it's just getting added right in. So 20 times 1 is 20, and then 20 times decimal 0.45 will be this percentage of 20. When I do that, I get $20.95. So essentially all I've added is the 95 cents. So 4.75% of 20 is 95 cents. 0.95. Now that I have this amount, I need to include a 15% tip. So I'm going to take my new amount, 20.95, and I'm going to multiply that times 1.15. Now the 1 again is to include this, and the this amount right here, and the 0.15 is to include the 15%. And when I do that, I get $24.09. Now that's one way to do it. Another way to do it would be to compound the interest into both, or the percentages. So I can take over here with the blue, I can take this amount, 4.75% and 15%. I can add both of those and just add it into one percentage, 19.75%. Right? The amount's going to be slightly less because I'm not looking for 15% of this new amount. I'm simply looking for 15% and 4.75% of original 20, not 20.95. So it's going to be slightly less, around 23 something. Oh, there it is, 23.95. So if we were to do it like that, then it would be 23.95. Okay, please pause and take a look at how they did in the book, and you can also take a look at how I did it. This is called compounded interest. Okay, compounded interest is we continue to find an interest or a percentage on the new balance. Okay, so we would do it separately. While here, they just added both together. Okay, let's just take a look at B and C here. We'll read it together, and then I want you to pause the video and try it on your own. Scott wants to tip his taxi cab driver 20%. If his commute costs $15, what is the total cost? Okay, pause the video now and try B on your own. I hope you paused the video. Let's see what we have here. We have $15. This is B, question B. We have $15 times 1, so I can include that in my final, decimal 2. That's my 20%, right? 2/10, 20%. When I multiply that, I will get $18. Because 20% of 15, which is 20% is 1/5. 1/5 of 15 is 3. And I'm including the 15 into my final total by multiplying it by 1. So 15 times 1 is 15, and 15 times 0.2 is 3. So 15 plus 3 is 18. Okay, let's try C. Pause the video if you haven't done so, and try C on your own. Find the total cost of a spa treatment of $42, including 6% tax and a 20% tip. Okay, let's do it the way the textbook did it. 6% tax and 20% tip is 26%, right? So we're going to take our 26%, but we're going to put a 1 in front of it. Let's put here, find the total cost of the spa treatment of $42, including 6%. So we're looking for the total cost after the 6% and 20% markup. So I'm going to take my 42 times 26%, but I want to include my 42 in my answer, so I'll multiply by 1, and then I'll write my 26%. Okay? Equals $52.92. Okay, so it looks like our 26% was $10.92 because it went up from, wow, yes. Okay, so that's what you would pay if you pay the tax plus 20% tip. Example 4. A store pays $56 for a GPS navigation system. The markup is 25%. Find the selling price. So we have to add 25% to this value so that we can create a price that the store will sell it for. First, find the markup. Let M represent the markup. Okay, so we're looking for 25% of 56. That's 14. So the markup is $14. If we add $14 to 56, we're going to get 70. So the selling price of the new GPS is $70. We pay 56, the store pays 56 for it, and they sell it for 70. Another way to do this, boys and girls, as I've been explaining, is take your $56 and multiply by 1, okay? And then include the percentage, 25%. Okay? And that'll give you exactly 70 without having to do this additional adding step that you see right there. Okay? Let's try D. A store pays $150 for a portable basketball backboard, and the markup is 40%. What is the selling price? So the store pays this much. They want to make a 40% profit on it. So $150 times 1.4, or 40%. Right? And when we do that, we get $210. Okay? Therefore, the markup is clearly $60. So 40% of 150 is $60. That's our markup. Okay, that could be our M, what we consider to be our profit margin. All right, here we go. This is your guided practice. Please take a look through it. Make sure that you understand what it is that you're expected to do in the first 15 minutes of class. If you are unsure, make sure you can go back in the video and take a look at the examples that you see there. If you can't do 1 or 2, go back to examples 1 or 2 of the video. If you can't do 3, look at example 3. And we just did example 4, a markup price, you see. Okay, everyone. If you have any questions and they can't be answered by the video, make sure you bring those questions to class. See you then.